right, we good? Ready to go? Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm joined today by Chief of Patrol Rodney Harrison and Chief of Detectives Dermot Shea. We're standing here today in what is the safest big city in the nation. That phrase has been used to describe this city for decades. And in recent years, that distinction has come to mean unprecedented, historic drops in both overall crime and violence. 2019 is building on that success. In fact, we're down over 2,500 major crimes already this year, a reduction of more than 7% since last year. In spite of these advancements, the NYPD will never become complacent in its work. We still have much to do. At the beginning of this year, we saw an uptick in shootings and homicides. But through a violence reduction plan carried out by the hard-working cops on patrol, along with the precision investigations of the world's greatest detectives, we have successfully brought these pockets of violence under control. As of this morning, we are down 12 homicides across the city compared to last year, and we are even with last year's record low number of shootings. Now we're looking to build upon that momentum, which is why we are announcing the 2019 Summer All-Out program, which is in its 5th year. The Summer All-Out takes cops currently working in non-enforcement or administrative assignments and moves them to commands that would benefit from an influx of additional officers. After careful analysis of current crime trends, the commands we have selected for this summer are, in the Bronx, the 4-0 precinct, the 4-2 precinct, and the 4-4 precincts. In Brooklyn, the 6-7, the 7-3, the 7-5, and the 7-9. In Queens, the 113. And in housing, we picked two housing PSAs, one in Brooklyn North, PSA 3, and one in Upper Manhattan, PSA 5. Also this year, for the first time, we're going to be putting personnel in Transit Bureau Manhattan Task Force. A total of 287 cops are going to be deployed in the 2019 Summer All-Out. This is approximately 70 more officers than we put out last year. We are also extending the duration of this summer's All-Out by 3 weeks, starting tomorrow and going through September 6th. We are increasing the number of commands receiving officers to 11 compared to 9 in 2018. Officers assigned to precincts or housing PSAs will be posted at locations experiencing ongoing or historic violence. Each commanding officer will assess local crime conditions and make deployment adjustments accordingly. Among the 11 selected commands are the 2 police service areas. They have been chosen to take on pockets of violence occurring in our public housing. And for the first time since the inception of Summer All-Out, we are sending cops into our transit system. These officers will be placed at high visibility posts on the platforms and at turnstiles throughout the system. No matter what command an officer is assigned to, they will all benefit from the infrastructure of neighborhood policing. Neighborhood coordination officers and steady sector cops will work with the all-out personnel and inform them on the local crime trends as well as quality of life conditions in the area. After being introduced to our partners in the community, the all-out officers will be working hand in hand with the New Yorkers that they serve. In previous years, all-out has yielded significant reductions in violence. Last summer, all-out commands experienced 11 fewer shootings compared to the same period in 2017. That's a reduction of 16%. They also posted 8 fewer murders for the same period compared to 2017. That's a 36% reduction. These reductions are more than just statistics, they are lives saved, which is why we remain locked in, focusing on the few areas experiencing violence. The men and women of the NYPD will not stop until every New Yorker in every neighborhood on every block is not only safe, but feels safe. Based on the outcome of previous all-outs, we are looking forward to seeing overall crime and violence driven down even further come September. Thank you. I'll take any questions related to the Summer All-Out. Good.
Yeah, you've noticed that the length of the duration of the Summer All-Out program is expanding by, I think, 2 or 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Is there any particular reason for driving that, or any particular pockets that you think are going to need extra emphasis for a period of time?
When we look at historically, a lot of violence can start before Memorial Day weekend. We wanted to make sure we had our cops out there and trained prior to Memorial Day weekend, so they'll be out on the streets starting tomorrow. They'll be there for the Memorial Day weekend through Labor Day weekend. Those are our biggest, start of the summer, end of the summer. So we wanted to make sure we had them out there as early as we could this year.
Where do they get pulled from, and what might suffer in terms of administrative paperwork, something like that, as a result?
It'll take a little longer to process some paper in this building. A lot of administrative staff, yeah, exactly. A lot of administrative staff in the building. You have to tighten it, get the paper done quicker. A lot of administrative staff throughout the boroughs and the precincts. More paperwork will go on the ones that remain, but it's more important for us to have cops. Cops are out there to keep people safe.
Well, in the past years, have any of those been sent out, been kept out permanently?
Some have asked to stay out. Some have actually realized they'd rather be out on the streets doing police work than sitting in the station house doing paperwork.
What would the one-day refresher training consist of?
It consists of one, going back, make sure we have all our range training, reinforcement of the patrol aspects, things that they're going to be looking for out on the street, de-escalation tactics, everything that they're going to need to go out back on the street. Listen, they're all cops. They've been cops. It's just a refresher course to get ready to go back out on the street. We give them 2 days. Anything else on this?
Do you think a lot of communities want more cops because they complain about some of those violent things that they see? But then you have some activist groups who say, no, we don't want more cops because that means more tickets, more summons, maybe more negative encounters with police officers. What's your response to that?
My response is we put our cops out on the street. We're working under a neighborhood policing philosophy right now, which is working hand in hand with our neighbors, working hand in hand with the communities. Take a look at the results. We've never been lower in shootings. We've never been lower in homicides. And we're doing it with less arrests, less summonses, less stops. It's being done with precision. It's being done to be out there working hand in hand with the 99.9% of good members out there to identify that 0.1% that causes the violence, causes the trouble, and get those ones off the streets.
Do you ever think this would become, let's say, permanent year-round, keeping this extra level of police out there?
It's great to do, but the paperwork does suffer after a while. There is administrative tasks that need to be done. So as much as we'd like to, I mean, every chief, every deputy commissioner in this building that gave up bodies, they're up in the office crying about how they're not going to be able to get their paper done. But it's more important for us as an agency to get them out there in the summer, which is traditionally the most violent months, to make sure people are safe.
All right, let's go off topic, please.
Chief, yesterday the Post reported that the Education Commissioner, Mr. Carranza, said that there was a culture of white supremacy in the Board of Education. He decried the use of white people, be concerned about the written word, using proper English, demanding quick results, using objective thinking. Is there such a culture in the NYPD?
No.
Can you give us an update on the subway attack video that you sent out yesterday and identifying the young man and possibly the suspect?
Yep. So about 30 hours ago, just before midnight the night before last, we received a Crime Stopper tip. What we had at that point in time, really, we had a tip without a crime. It's the first we learned of the incident. It was essentially a video clip off the internet. We think you should investigate this. Throughout the day yesterday, we were on that. We obviously posted it, working with the media. We thought, first and foremost, our major concern was when you look at that attack and the viciousness of it, we didn't know where it happened. We believed it happened in New York City, but we didn't know when. And our primary responsibility there was, do we have somebody seriously physical injured behind a closed door somewhere? That time is of the essence. So we thought it was important enough to get that out. We immediately then, started to get tips again through Crime Stoppers. Significant amount of progress. What I can tell you was we believe, as we stand here now, that incident took place in New York City. We don't know exactly where, but it took place in New York City in the early part of November of 2018. It was an unreported to the police incident. We believe the individual, and we have him tentatively identified. Went to the hospital, did suffer significant injuries, but again, never reported to the police. Some broken teeth, some pretty bad bruising. Obviously, I would think a concussion with what I saw in that video. And that's where we are now. continue. We'll be looking to identify this person. We think he's out of state, and we'll go from there in terms of, the further investigation.
With the tips that you received from Crime Stoppers, obviously you've made tremendous progress identifying the victims, but what about the suspects?
Until we speak to that individual, we really won't have a better idea of what started the dispute until we speak to him. So the tips that we did receive were of the type of nature of pointing us toward an individual. When we started knocking on doors and interviewing people, we met family members that did identify that individual, and that's where the investigation started and started to progress from there. What was the genesis of why the incident took place? We have no idea at this point in time. Why he chose not to report it to the police, that also is part of the investigation going forward.
Are you able to say what hospital he went to?
I do not have that.
Do you think there might have been gang-related, given that,
One at a time?
do you think it might be gang-related, given that there wasn't cooperation?
I think it's a little early to speculate on that, so we'll move forward. We believe he's down south. We'll look to interview this individual, and we'll go from there wherever the facts lead.
Can you tell us about what age he is?
22 years old.
And what borough?
I believe he's a resident of the Bronx. I do not know where the incident took place in the city, and he's 22 years of age. Rocco?
There was audio, I know it was released without the audio. Is there anything in the audio that suggests a motive or
Yeah.
bias or anything?
No, I listened to it with the audio. You didn't hear that much. What you heard was sickening, and I say that because you heard people joking about striking another human being. That's essentially, I don't recall names or anything dramatically of an evidentiary nature, but it was just hard to listen to.
Can you tell us more about the injuries? You said you had some broken teeth. Do you have any more information on
So let me just clarify. What I saw is what you saw. Obviously, you saw somebody suffering some pretty significant blows to the head. You saw him bleeding from the face. He may have been knocked unconscious at some point, but it's difficult for me to say that definitively. In speaking to several people in our investigation yesterday, they related to us that he suffered some broken teeth or missing teeth, as well as cuts and bruising to the head. Beyond that, it could be much more significant, quite frankly. We don't believe he had any prolonged stay in the hospital, but again, it's a little early.
Did he go out of state to avoid the attackers?
That's unknown.
So does he live here or live in the South? I just want to know.
A little of both.
So he's a resident of the Bronx?
He's a resident in New York City, but he has spent some time in the South, I believe before and after, but I'd have to clarify that.
Chief, unrelated subway incident, there was a woman who maybe was shot or maybe just suffered an injury running from a gunfire, a woman from Iowa.
Yep.
The one before train.
Yep.
In the Franklin Avenue station on the 4 line. Can you fill us in on what
Yeah, roughly 10:30 last night at Franklin and Eastern Parkway down in the subway. We have as you said, a tourist from out of state in town to attend a graduation ceremony. I don't want to go too deep into it. What we have is her standing on the subway platform with some family members. We have at least one individual. We're going to be putting up, not yet, but before the end of the day, we will be putting out 2 photos of individuals, persons of interest at this point. We have individuals shooting across the train tracks at another individual when our victim, a bystander, we believe she was shot. She suffered a very minor injury to her left ankle. When you start to look at that incident now, as we look backwards, we've had a number of incidents, including one immediately preceding that still is very fresh, and as we're continuously to investigate this, that it may have stemmed from an incident topside that led down below. We had a shot spotter response approximately 10 minutes before that, indicating 6 shots fired. As we look into that area, and now the question probably more than likely will turn to gangs. We see a couple incidents leading up to it in the weeks before of possible shots fired. So this is all needs to be pulled together by a combination of our detectives on the street, our NCOs, our field intelligence officers, as we try to get a bigger picture as this becomes clear. Who's involved, what's going on here. Yes, sir.
In the subway, MTA Chairman Pat Boyd had talked about somebody going around pulling the emergency brakes.
Yep.
He said that, is the NYPD deploying any officers to was to deal with that?
We deploy officers every day, but to that specific incident, well, I'll turn it.
Yeah, that's part of why we're putting out the 25 cops in the all-out within the transit system, freeing up more cops to move on the trains, be on the trains. Neighborhood policing, which will be completed in transit within the next couple of months, also is freeing up another 10 to 15% onto the trains to make sure that we're getting more people out there. Again, I said this earlier, transit crime is down. It is down this year. But just because it's down, it's just as important that people feel safe, not just that they are safe. So we want to make sure they're seeing cops on the system when they walk into the system, and just as importantly, seeing them on the trains.
Could you speak to how long this person or multiple people will be pulling emergency brakes on these trains?
That's the investigation.
Yeah, just in terms of what the pulling of the emergency brakes, we're going to be investigating as a reckless endangerment. We'll go from there. In terms of how long this is, has been going on, I don't have that answer today. It's not something that I would categorize as common, certainly, hopefully not. But it poses a danger and a risk to people anytime that you're disrupting. So we will investigate it accordingly, and we'll go from there to determine what the motive is.
There was a video the department put out, I think a few days ago, in which seemed to be a group of 5 or 6 young men and women sort of marauding through possibly the Rockaway, I'm not sure. Has there been any follow-up, or do you have any information about they may have been involved in an attack, a community attack?
Firefighter, so that was on the Upper East Side. Approximately 6 young individuals, male and female. What we have in that incident is a firefighter that interrupts what I'll call a horseplay of some type, and winds up getting assaulted pretty bad. I understand he's going to make a recovery, so we're thankful for that. We have identified and interviewed a number of individuals thus far, and that investigation goes forward. I would anticipate an arrest shortly in that assault of the firefighter.
Marsha?
Chief, the mayor is involved in a presidential campaign that's involving a lot of police tactics who are following him around the country. I wonder how do you feel about calls from city councilmen to have the mayor's campaign reimburse taxpayers and the NYPD for the cost?
That detail works under Commissioner Miller. I'm going to have him answer that question for you.
So, Marcia, as you know, and I think others know because we've done a story about the mayor's travel before, the NYPD position on this is that we protect the mayor because he's the mayor wherever he goes, whether that's on vacation, out of the country, out of town, and this fits into that model, which is as long as he's the mayor and he's traveling, the NYPD is going to protect him.
So I have a follow-up question. Some people think it's a difficult situation because of the overtime situation in the NYPD. There's been a clampdown on overtime generally in the NYPD and as part of the mayor's budget, yet the people who travel with him are employing significant overtime. Is that hypocritical? How do you feel about it?
So, in the Intelligence and Counterterrorism Bureau, you're talking a couple of thousand people. The mayor's detail is a very small part of that. Their overtime is managed the way overtime in the Intelligence and Counterterrorism Bureau is managed. And so far, I haven't seen any significant increases in their overtime. Part of that is the way the team is designed. They work typically 17-hour tours, meaning that in general, the team with the mayor spends the day and night with the mayor. In travel, that can get complicated if somebody goes into a third day. So what you try to do is spread the trips around and stay within the overtime parameters. There's other ways to manage it, but so far we haven't seen anything over the top.
Again, it's early in the campaign, and he has 2 campaign appearances tomorrow and then this weekend, and he seems to be ramping up for more appearances.
As I said, it's early in the picture. We don't have an awful lot of experience with this because I don't think a mayor of New York has run for president since maybe Lindsay. So we'll learn as we go, but we have other ways to manage it. You can manage it by the way you use people, by the way you plan travel, and I don't see it, as we're looking at it now, as a significant factor in our overall overtime expenditures. But I want to make sure we manage it from here, because These are security decisions. The mayor of New York, whoever he or she may be at any time, now or in the future, is a national figure. It's a high profile. This mayor has had a lot of threats. Mayor Bloomberg had a lot of threats. So what we factor into security decisions are, what is the profile of the mayor? What's the threat stream around that person and or their family, which varies from mayor to mayor? And what are our security judgments in terms of what that protection should look like? I would be very reticent about getting into a situation where either campaign people or people who were factoring in costs would be making security decisions. Those should be made here.
Mayor Pete reimburses his campaign for his security using or hires private security. Do you think that would be applicable here?
I don't know what they do where Mayor Pete comes from. This is how we do it here, and this is how we've always done it here. Meaning, Marcia, this is not new. This is the way we've always worked this.
At some point, does Secret Service kick in for its protection?
So Secret Service makes those decisions on an individual and kind of tactical basis. When you become the party's nominee in one of the major parties, generally the Secret Service protection will come in there. However, there are other decisions. For instance, Barack Obama's threat profile as a candidate was judged to be at a level where they provided Secret Service protection very early. That would be a decision made by the Secret Service. If the mayor were to get the nomination and were protected by the Secret Service, I believe I would still maintain an element of the NYPD as long as he was mayor as part of that package.
Commissioner, while we have you up there,
John?
Yep.
we don't have much detail, but a man in Jersey arrested for making a number of threats, including the Trump Tower, and that was arrested.
So that is a Newark Joint Terrorism Task Force case that's before the courts in Newark. So I'm going to be obviously limited there in that it's a case in another jurisdiction. But I think it's important to note, we knew about this case from the beginning. We were advised of this very early on. This is an individual, Jonathan Z., 20 years old, from Basking Ridge, who traveled to New York on several occasions under FBI surveillance. That's the Joint Terrorism Task Force there, assisted by the Joint Terrorism Task Force here. On the Newark Joint Terrorism Task Force, we have a sergeant and 2 detectives. So we were very much in the loop as this unfolded. I think if you get to the next logical question, which was, at any time, was there a threat to New York City from this case? Based on the briefings we were receiving in real time, I would say the proper controlling features were in place to be able to say no. This is a very good investigation, but since it's before the federal courts in Newark, and there's an extensive federal complaint filed with a good amount of detail, I'll let you rely on that for the rest.
Does he have a record here and previously crossed paths?
Going to let you rely on New Jersey and the court filings for the rest.
Good morning, we're going to wrap.
Can I ask, last Friday, and I don't know if you had the opportunity to speak about it, but your concerns, there was a female police officer arrested who was trying to kill her ex-husband and her boyfriend's daughter. And this is a cop who's on the job. I know she's on modified, but what do you say to folks who say, wow, this is a New York City cop, maybe the both of you, if you can respond?
Obviously, I'm not going to speak about the case. It's an ongoing case, criminal case against her. It's disturbing to hear. It's not something that we expect from our police officers, and the FBI has got the case, and she's under arrest.
Last one.
The chief, along the same line, when something like that happens, you guys go back and look at the time when she was hired, how she was vetted, what may have been missed, and part 2 of that question, there was an off-duty officer arrested in Baltimore yesterday, usually not only for assaulting an officer who has his own sort of history. I guess my question would apply to that.
Obviously, we want to look at anything we can to see what we can do to make the hiring process even better, anything that we can catch. So we'll take a look at all these instances that make it into the media and those that don't, and take a look at the history of these cops. What was missed, what could have been missed, how we could have moved the process along. According to Donnelly, that's an ongoing case from his history in the past. The Department Advocate has it right now, and that's something that's going to be adjudicated very quickly.
Okay, thank you, folks.